if you're, this is probably going to be the most helpful for you. I probably should have clarified this when I started all this, but this guide is going to be helpful for you if you already have a good idea of how PKs work, but you don't know why they work. Like, you don't know what makes you drop the combo while you're doing it. If as you're doing your execution, you know that, 2S2H2 is supposed to work on Kai, but it's not working. Like, he's falling out of it and killing me, or I hit him with the 4-6P, but the K didn't come out. It's probably because you hit him with the active, or with the very first active of it, instead of letting it become active and letting him fall into it. Kind of how we were talking about before. Knowing why the combo doesn't work or why it dropped kind of helps you understand, not only, like, just knowing the theory behind it is good, but what it gives you is the ability to adjust that combo the next time so that you know it will hit. Hi everybody. It's SweetX Jam. Welcome to the Jam PK Theory Masterclass. I'm going to be live streaming this, but it'll probably get cut down for all intents and purposes. This is probably just a good starting point for footage if at some point me or someone else decides to like compile it and make it a little cleaner. Basics of the basics. If you're not familiar with what a PK combo is, it's Jam's one of her like main bread and butter combos in Rev. It involves 4-6P, which is the parry follow-up, and the following kick. I'm not going to harp on this too much because we have a lot of resources about what PK combos are and how to do them and all this other stuff. We got spreadsheets and all that, so I'm going to go over kind of what pertains the most to combo theory and how it works, because there's a few things to keep in mind outside of the stuff that we already have written. There's some overall rules, right? So PK as a combo, or rather in combos, because of the way that hitstun works in Guilty Gear, there's like a longer explanation, frame data, etc., and how much hitstun you have on moves. But the long and short of it, basically, like the rule of thumb is the K of PK has to hit 7 or earlier, or otherwise it probably won't work and there won't be enough hitstun. There's obviously some exceptions to this, like if I remember correctly, IDDP is an example, because this by itself is, like 6 hits, so obviously PK is going to work. This is a common pickup on a lot of characters, and because of the way that gravity works, because in Guilty Gear, hits with higher gravity, or more hits in the combo increases the gravity of the opponent while they're being comboed. This is why against lightweights, you'll almost always get IEDDP into whatever filler, PK, and then Puff Puff, which is 236 SSH. The one puffball followed by the second. This is a common thing that happens in PKs, especially with midweights and like heavier, is you'll get PK into Puff Puff. And then you can charge a max card, or you can do like running, jumping, Oki, or just run up into 2K, whatever. That's kind of a from the basic level, that's a very common thing in Jam's combos. But that's what we say when we mean PK Puff Puff. It's PK and then the double puffball. So that's also another rule of thumb. That's a nice segue. The other rule of thumb is that most PK combos on midweights and on anybody heavier than a midweight, and I'll go over kind of what this means a bit later, but suffice to say, like, most of the male cast and the bigger bodies will usually be low enough after the combo to get the puff puff pretty consistently no matter what the starter is. There's combos that give you PK puff puff on lightweights, and there's ways that you can get PK into the double puffball on lightweights, but those are like a lot more specific, and in general, if you're doing just a random pickup into puff puff, a lot of the time it doesn't work. Obviously there's exceptions, we'll go over those, but that's kind of the basics before we get into some further theory. So one big thing that we sometimes don't mention enough is there's a way to tell as well whether or not you'll get the PK based on how it hits. So the way that we kind of describe it is like this hitbox, the 4-6P, the punch, the little orb that comes out, you don't want it to hit them. I'm going to turn the counter hit off just to make it a little more clear. So you don't want it to hit them like this with like the very beginning of the animation hitting them, if that makes sense. See how that little like ball forms right in front of her fist? You want to be able to do that move and have the like initial hitbox of it come out and they like fall into it. So like when they're in the air, is this gonna work? See how it kind of like the hitbox forms while he's in the air and then he kind of falls into it. That's kind of, because of the way that the frames work, that's a good indicator. So when you see that, when you do a lot of PK combos and you see that happen, you'll become a lot more aware, and you'll be able to tell just by the way that the opponent's hurtbox or their like body looks when they're in the combo, because there's lots of weird things the animation does when they're getting comboed, but like if you watch Kai's body, he'll kind of like bounce up and down. Like every character has their like tilted back in the air getting hit animation, and like one where their back is shown to you and they're just like facing head first, or like head first to the ground, and there's other like animations, but when you see them a lot and you get more familiar with them, you can kind of tell what's happening in the combo based on what they do. So like if I were to do a throw combo and I miss the PK, I don't think that missed actually, but let's do it with one that we know doesn't work. So I know like this one is not gonna work. He kind of like doesn't really prop up when he's getting hit by it. It looks like it's just another hit in the combo where he's just tilted back. Whereas in the combo that works, he kind of like falls into it for a second, and then the 4-6P hits him, and then you get the K. So that's just kind of a note. Like that's how you can tell if a PK is going to work or not based on just like visually how the combo is going to look. And that helps a lot with, this is all kind of more for things outside the general setups that are like off of the common counter hits that we've written documents for, or like the common starters. This will help you tell like when you get a weird hit like counter hit 2S while they're in the air or something like that, and you need to judge whether or not the setup that you did, like the filler you did before the PK, works. That's one way to tell, or that's kind of the most important way. Another thing about kind of like the setup of combos normally is there's obviously exceptions, but most of the time the format of it is going to be like a starter. So like a a counter hit puffball or something like that, or a wall bounce, or you get some kind of starter, like a throw RC is a very common one, and then some kind of filler, and then the PK. So in this case it was, the starter was like throw RC, the filler was 2S, 2H. Something 2H is the most common filler. Like almost every, like 95% of combos are going to be something into 2H1, whether it's one hit or two hits. That kind of becomes a question later on, but like something into 2H is the filler. So when I talk about filler, I'm generally talking about whatever is going to come before the 2H, which comes before 4-6 PK. That's generally the format. There's some really weird ones. That's kind of the main thing to focus on if you're just starting to learn about the combo theory. And we're going to talk about some of the most common filler normals, because it's nice, I guess, to have a list before you kind of know the most, like before you can kind of just tell which one to use. It's nice to have a bunch that you can keep in mind and test out on different matches and stuff like that and different characters. So some of the most common ones, and I'm going to list them in order of like how high they push the opponent's body up in the combo, because that's kind of how I think of it, and it makes the most sense to me to list them this way, with one that's by far probably the least common but worth mentioning is 2K. So you can do 2K 2HS 46 PK. That's primarily like lightweights. That's like a super light combo. Like I think the only time I've done 2K 2H 46 PK was on Ram, because she gets popped like way up regardless of what you do to her. So it can be kind of hard to combo her sometimes, but 2K is a very good one. One of the very common ones is 5K. So you see 5K 2H a lot. I wonder if this will work on Kai. He's kind of light, so it probably won't. Or he's kind of heavy, so no, actually it does. There's some adjustments you have to make, but you can definitely do that. But 5K is like a pretty low hitting one. Another low hitting one that pops them up slightly higher is 2S. 2S is the one that I use on Kai a lot, and I actually use it on a good amount of characters pretty often. 2S is one of my favorite filler normals for PK, because it works very well, and it's not like you can do I'm holding back and doing S, which is very helpful because this is kind of a tangent, but getting in the habit of doing 1S will help a lot with burst space turns and things like that. Sometimes it'll whiff and you'll be blocking anyway, so you'll like accidentally block a burst or something because you're doing a Gatling that has 2S in it. But for the use case of like using 5K, when you do, you know, for example, a counter hit puffball and you want to use 5K in the combo, you have to do one of two things. When you're like in motion, and you get to the point where you're going to do the filler and do the combo, you have to get 5K, you either have to be doing true neutral 5K. Like, I'm not holding A direction when I do this, so you have to like, I wonder if it shows in the inputs, yeah. So I get the counter hit, forward run, and then my stick goes back to neutral before I do 5K. Because otherwise what happens is, if you're running and you still have forward momentum and you don't let go of forward fast enough, you'll get 6K. And this is a very common thing with jam players with like when they do Oki, they'll get you know, you want to do like a dash up, oops, and you'll want to do like dash up 5K, but instead you'll like accidentally get a 6K after running up, which is a completely different move in terms of like Gatlings and the things you can do with it and kind of what the use of it is. So it's not great, because then somebody's going to backdash your 5K attempt and it'll actually be 6K, and then you get chucked because that move is in recovery for a bajillion frames. Continuing on, 5K, 2S is one of my favorites. Close slash is very common as well. Close slash pops up a little bit higher than 2S, and it's very common in like the combos that you see in the training mode tutorials, but as well it's a good mid-weight filler. It works on a lot of characters that are like Kai and heavier, or yeah, like Kai and heavier, and that's like all the single normal ones for the most part. After that, the other ones that are worth mentioning are both 2-hit fillers, and they both start with 5K. So one other filler that's useful is 5K close slash. I do. Oh my gosh. It's muscle memory at this point. 5K close slash works. I think that might not be heavy enough for PK after. No, it should work, yeah. 5K close slash is a very common one, but as you saw just a moment ago, the one that I use far more often, that is actually slightly, puts them up slightly less high, is 5K 2S. 5K 2S is nice, and you would think that a lot of the time it wouldn't work because the 2S hitbox is kind of low, but it becomes really useful for like midweights and for heavier characters like Soul, and not necessarily anybody that's a heavy body. I don't use it often, but like the slightly heavier characters that are like mid-weight to like mid-heavy. Those are the most important ones for the most part. There's other ones that get used. I'm going to show those real quick just because they're fun, but the important ones are in order of how high they send the opponent. 5k, 2s, close slash, and 5k, 2s, and 5k close slash. Those are like, if you're going to start using any, what is it, like 5 sets of filler normals or strings, those are the ones to use. With those 5, you cover almost all the cast, most of the cast, with like fairly good success rate on all the different counter hits and setups that you can possibly get. So use a few other fun ones. I'm pretty sure this works on Soul. 6k can be useful. 6p, I think. I don't know if that works on Soul, but it works on somebody. Yeah, works on Soul. And those send them slightly higher, so I don't use them on anybody but the mid to mid heavies. 6p, 2s, for example, would work. This is kind of getting into more, though, like weird combinations of normals that you can use. There's other purposes for those sets of strings. Like, I think you could probably do something like 6p, 2p. It's like beta burst or something like that. I wonder. So counter 6p, 2p, 7 bursts on hit 3. Probably works, I just need to slow it down. Yeah, something like that. So there's other things you can do with it, but not a common one. Close slash, far slash also works as a filler. I'm not going to show that because I think I can only do that on like Potemkin or something like that. But the other fun one that's not super common, but and is kind of difficult. It's in one of the trials. It's 6H. There's a 6H PK combo on Soul that's like one of the beginner trials, and it's either the last one or like the second to last one or something. But it's this giant combo where you do like a full confirm into puffball 6H 4/6 PK. I think that's the last one actually. Yeah, it's a sick combo. I don't think I've ever done it in an actual match, but it's dope. But you can do stuff with 6H as well. I don't know if I can do it. If not, I think I recorded this one because I was gonna tweet it or something. Oh, nice. Glad I got that. That's like an example of a weird confirm, and that's also the exception I was talking about earlier. That's like almost everything is filler into 2H, but 6H is one of the only normals that you can do into 4/6 PK without 2H. So it's useful in its own way, especially like when you get a weird like Ryujin max counter hit or something, and you need to get like all the way across the stage and just like oh, that's gonna wall splat. But you need to like, you're getting the hit in one corner and you need to get a PK or something like that. There's all kinds of weird situations, but 6H works into 4/6 PK, but it relies a lot on your ability to like look at the height of the other character as they're being juggled so that you can get that meaty 4/6 P to land. But it's useful to mention because there are definitely a few times where it's gotten me a combo in a spot that I didn't think I would get one. Other things to mention for theory before we dive into it. One of the other things you can use to adjust besides the filler before the PK is the 2H itself and how many hits you let happen. You can kind of see this even by yourself, and I'd recommend actually boot up the game and while you're watching this, whether it be right now or when it's a VOD, try some of this stuff out yourself and you'll see it a lot more easily when you're doing it and it's right in front of you. But the different hits at 2H, like 2H itself launches, the first hit launches them up a little bit and the second one launches them up even higher, which you can kind of see if you look at like the thing that I use sometimes is I'll look at where the head of the character is, you know, compared to the life bar, compared to some aspect of the background when I'm looking at the combo. So his head's gonna go to like kind of poking into the risk gauge, but if I let both hits rock, it's already like touching above that. So the second hit of 2H launches them up a little bit higher, which is useful when you're doing the combo and you do the filler and you start the 2H, and you can kind of like, you know, after a certain point where the 4-6P is going to hit. So like that one, yeah, 2D counter hit, run up, like this thing is not working, so what do? I can tell because of the way that the 4-6P is hitting him, it's hitting him instantly before it even comes out that he's too high. So I wonder if 2H2 will work. Oh, see, and that time he's too high, so he got bounced too high by the second hit of it. I might be able to delay it, but yeah, and if I delay it, this is exactly the thing I'm going to talk about this stream, so I'm not going to get too deep into this one point, but like, you see how 2H bounces him up a little bit higher. The other thing on top of that I did to make it work is I delayed the 4-6P. This is especially pertinent at the beginning of a combo. Just to kind of preface, hit stun decays the more, like the longer the combo goes on, as it does in most fighting games, but like early on in the combo, if it's only like 3 or 4 hits, and even sometimes more than you would expect, you get a lot of time between the end of 2H and when you have to hit them with 4-6PK to have them not drop out of the combo. So you can delay a good amount. Like I delayed that last combo quite a bit. Even that's like a big delay. That's like an even bigger delay, and it still hits. So 2H, to summarize, first hit sends them pretty high. But the second hit sends them even higher. And also, the amount of time that you wait to do the 4-6P after the 2H is actually, you have a pretty wide window, and after they're falling from whichever hit of 2H you decide to use, as they start falling down towards the ground as they do, you can make them, you can delay the amount of time before you do the 4-6P in order to get it to be active and have them fall into this hitbox. So I'm gonna run through some of the examples that I had, because I had a bunch of like example combos written out to illustrate some of these things. I think a lot of them are on Elfelt. Oh yeah, a combo that works on Elfelt. Oops. And yeah, the puff doesn't work like we were talking about before, because of the weight class. I kind of showed it a little bit earlier, so maybe I don't have to show it again necessarily with Elfelt, but we kind of saw it with Soul, how you can delay it and they can fall into it, and etc, etc. I'm not going to rehash that. The weight classes, I probably should have explained this earlier, but I'm gonna say it kind of more in detail now. There's different weight classes of characters in Guilty Gear, depending on a bunch of different things, but usually it's like the size of the character and their like hurt box and their model, and also like some other things, stylistic things. It's kind of like a weird, it's another weird Guilty Gear thing, but there's better resources than me on that whole thing, and in fact, I know there's like there's a good amount of resources written that describe them as like lights, I think medium weights and heavy weights, and depending on a lot of things, that's kind of like in general a good barometer, a good classification for all of them, because a lot of the combos for different characters abide by a lot of those rules. There's some additional notes though, like kind of the way that I've seen it work learning the combos for this character over the years is there's among lights, there's like regular lights. Elf out is one. And then there's super lights that get bounced mad high in combos. So, kind of like I was talking about with 2K, the reason I know 2K works is because I like ran through all of my normals on Ram when I was doing counter hit puff combos in the corner, and I just like couldn't figure out what to do with her, because she gets sent up by just about everything. So like Ram's a super light for me. Dizzy is as well. May kind of is too. Maybe I should just look at the character list. That's probably a better way, because I didn't list them all out. Super lights are like Ram, Dizzy. Millia's pretty light. She's kind of in between. Light characters are like Elfelt, say Milia, Eno, Jacko, Jam. These two are like some weird cases though, because they have like weird hitboxes, or weird hurt boxes rather. Bikin's like a light character. I think that's about it, unless I'm like blind. Those are like some examples of light characters. So there's super lights, lights. Mediums are the ones that kind of like have the most variation in terms of, you know, what you can do in terms of filler on them before you get the 4-6 PK. I consider medium weights to be like Chipson. Venom is medium-ish, but he's got a weird hurt box. Same with Zato. Answer's kind of medium. Kai is definitely medium. Leo is like medium-ish, between medium and mid-heavy, but he also has a weird hurt box. Raven is like, you know, good medium weight. Medium-heavy is anybody that is slightly heavier, falls into like, I guess the best way to explain it, I guess, is like people where 2S or 5K won't PK them, kind of like I showed at the beginning with Kai, where I could do like their RC 2S 4H, you know, 2H 4-6 PK. The characters where 5K and 2S stop working effectively and you have to move on to like 5K 2S or 5K CS or just CS, those are the characters that I start to consider medium heavy. The best example of this, I think, is Soul, who you're not gonna 5K 2H him most of the time. Slayer's kind of that way too. Sin is a little bit that way, but his hurt box is really generous, so you can do just about anything on him and it'll work. That's like a notorious thing. He's really fun to, not as much fun to fight as he is to combo, but super fun to combo. And they start to get into like the heavier weights and the heavier juggles. Big bodies or heavyweights or whatever you want to call them is like Bedman, Potemkin, High-Hewn. These characters like Kum, Bedman, and Potemkin are the only ones that you get PK from throw combos without RCing. So every other character you pretty much always have to do like a throw into RC to get a PK. But these characters fall so, they go so low into the air when they get kicked up, and they fall so, like, they start falling so low into the air that you can actually get like a direct 4-6 PK off of the throw on, I believe, all of them. I'm going to show that a bit later, but I think I tested in. Some people tend to do 2H 4-6 PK instead, but like you can do just raw throw into PK on all of them. So that's kind of the general overview of weight classes. It's like super lights and lights. That tends to be most of the female characters fall into that category. And then medium weights, medium heavies, if you want to make the distinction, and big bodies, which is like the other big class. It's like light, medium, big. But to drill down a little bit, just for the purposes of our combos, that's kind of helps to illustrate it. I think I already talked about this, but PK into Puff Puff most of the time doesn't work on lightweights unless it's a combo from IEDDP, or you do a max geki or a max axe kick in the combo before you do the double puffball, and then it'll work. But yeah, that's weight classes. I'm gonna pick Elfelt again, and she's real fun to PK. Her and Kai are some of the best characters to like train on when you're just trying to learn theory. Them and Sin, because you can play around with so much stuff and just about everything will work kind of how you expect it to. As you get more experience, you'll kind of see what does and doesn't work, and those characters are the ones where the most freeform combos I've ever gotten have come out. When we think about starters, is I guess the next thing we'll talk about starters. A lot of this is in the spreadsheet, which take a moment to plug the Jam Discord. We have a character Discord for Jam that has a lot of resources, including spreadsheets that show, you know, what PK combos are known to work on what characters with what normals, and what you get off of it after. It's a really good starting resource, and it helps to build your confidence in learning those combos and getting to see kind of what she does as you're learning the character. I'm looking to see who made it because I want to give credit. I think someone's name's got to be on here. I know Codain made a playlist with a bunch of them. Sway made a chart. Somebody else made a chart, I know for sure. I'm gonna feel real bad if I can't remember. But we have, like I said, we have a chart that shows a lot of the PK combos that you can start with, and that's definitely something to check out as well. Everybody in that Discord is generally very helpful and likes seeing people get the information they want and watch. We love watching new Jam players come up, so if you're tuning in and if you have an interest in this character, please do consider joining up, and we'll see you over there. But yeah, that to kind of get back to what I was saying, there's a lot of common starters that you can lab, and we'll talk about some of them. You can get PK combos from a lot of different things in a lot of different situations, and you'll start to see the weirder ones the more you play and the more you have to adjust. That's kind of what this guide is for, is to show the theory behind it, so that when you get a weird hit, you're able to convert it into a PK with better success, because not everything is going to be a common starter. But we'll talk about some of the common starters that we're doing just because they're good to know. The RC is a good one. The RC is good for getting, because it gives you, if you do the full combo correctly, you get a guaranteed knockdown basically with whatever card you have on lightweights, and on, oh my god, I'm so bad. So this gives you a guaranteed knockdown and then Oki. On lightweights it gives you that. On midweights, most of the time you can do, mid and heavy, you can do that starter into a charge card and then PK them, and because they're heavy enough you'll get a double puffball after, which will give you Oki and you've gained a card. So it's very important, especially when you're trying to like reverse the situation by getting a good throw and then starting to build your resources to start taking the game back, or to build momentum as well. Another common one that we'll get, because we use this a lot in neutral, the puffball. Off of counter hit puffball, S puffball gives them the tumble, so you'll get a combo off of that. Each puffball in the corner gives a wall splat. In the mid screen it gives a tumble. There's different situations where you'll get these, so it's good to be prepared. Puffball counter hits, far/IED is kind of a bigger one in terms of, or it's a more difficult one, I should say. So there's a rule that like when you get a standing, this is only for a standing counter hit far/, and usually typically at the range where you're like not too far away from them or too close to them, because if you're too, I think if you're too far away... Oh no, I guess you can be pretty far, but if you're too close, I think you'll just like go right over. Oh, that's pretty close still, or pretty far. Yeah, if you're like that, if you're too close, you'll just like go right over them sometimes, or if you don't do it fast enough. But ugh. Yeah, and there's stuff like that where you just like end up side swapping. So it's kind of becomes a little bit more difficult, especially on lightweights. It's kind of weird sometimes. I think there's also a resource that describes how to do that on a bunch of different characters. I wonder if I can do it on alpha. It might be easier on another character, but yeah, either way. There's plenty of those in the spreadsheet, and that's the kind of thing that actually you probably should lab, because it's a little difficult to see at times, and most of the times you know like what the counter hit combo is that you're looking for. Let me give it one try with Kai and see, because I haven't actually looked at like any kind of resource for the /IED combos, and a lot of times the other thing you can do is just to try to get a PK, you'll use IED, JP, JP, JK, JS, or just JP, JK, JS with some delay. But if you're not confident, or you don't want to try to PK them for whatever reason, like if they're a lightweight and you don't think you can get the puffball after you don't have cards, it's probably better to just do JH instead and get like a grounded combo. Nah, that's too high. Oh, that would have worked. That's not gonna work though. What's up the puffball? There it goes. That's an example one. That's a thing that's kind of starting to get more into the territory of like more complex combos and stuff that's very situational, because a lot of the times what'll happen is they'll be, well, I'll show you because this stuff feels bad. If you get a /counter hit on somebody that's pressing like 2K or 2S or something, and they end up like this, and you're like, I'm gonna press / and IED at them and get the counter hit combo, well, oops, now you're getting thrown or getting 2P mashed or whatever. So it's very situational, and you either gotta be able to react really well, or you gotta know. So that's another starter. There's also, because of the way that parry works, you're gonna end up parrying a lot of moves while people are still in the like active frames or the recovery of their animation, and it's gonna counter hit them. So this I also consider a setup, because what you can do, doubles, and it'll depend on the weight of the character whether or not you can get pretty consistent doubles into another double puffball. But you can almost always get, even when they're in the air, you can get a pretty consistent double PK on them, but it is a bit more difficult because after they get launched in the air, really the only thing you're probably going to be able to do is 2H, because the way they recover is like, by the time they're right there in the air, it's like right where Kai was. It's like head height for jam. All of your normals are not gonna, all of your filler normals are not gonna reach up there, so you really just kind of have to do another 2H. Plus, the way that hit stun works, the further along it is in the combo, the less chance you're gonna get another 4/6P to work, or 4/6PK to work. So really, it's got to be like 4/6PK counter hit 2H, either one hit or two into another PK. A good character to practice this on is Slayer. The first double PK I actually ever got in my life was on Slayer, when I didn't even know it was gonna work. Slayer and Johnny are some good bodies to practice on. And it'll also kind of depend as well on whether or not you do like a micro dash or how far you micro dash. Oh, that would have worked. So if I do like a slightly smaller micro dash, I'll hit with the top part of 4-6P instead of like the closer you get, you're hitting with the edges that are a little bit lower. So like when I did that 2H, the 4-6P ended up right where Kai's upper back is, and it was just a bit too low at the edge to hit him. But if you want to hit him at the back, you'd have to kind of do it a little bit deeper like that and make sure he's in there. But that's another starter. Counter hit 6H wall bounce is a good starter as well. Most commonly, the combos that we see in the corner are, you know, puffballs, and to some degree you can sometimes get PKs off of this too. But the other thing you can do, besides a puffball, counter hit 6H mid-screen, you really should be doing either double puffball or if you have a charge, oh my gosh, like a Ryujin, that'll be your best in the corner. Because of the way that 6H counter hit works, you get a wall bounce. So what you can actually do is when you see that you got the wall bounce, you confirm it into a PK. He's gonna be too high, but I don't think puff. Oh, it does work. Sick. It's all kinds of weird cases like that where they're just like at the very top of where the puffball hits, where you don't even see the hitbox. But that's the kind of thing you experiment with and fail a billion times before you get a sense of it. I still have a little bit of trouble with that, but more so what we're talking about is PKs. So counter hit wall bounce in the corner basically is a solid way to get a PK. And the difference between these two combos actually is probably a good indicator of why combo theory and PK is important, because the difference between like this combo where he falls into it but he's like mad high, I had to hit him with the very top of the puffball and it's kind of tight, like it's got to be right out there when you're going to do it. But like we were talking about earlier, close slash launches them a bit higher in terms of like weight classes and stuff. So if I were to do something like 5K instead, he's not anywhere near as high. So this is like a little bit more doable, especially if you use 2H1 instead of 2H2, because then there's less hits in the combo and there's less hit stun decay. So it's a lot easier to get a follow-up after or it's a little bit easier and it's a bit more consistent to get a puff after the PK. 6H wall bounce is a good starter. Ryujin RC. Oof. Ryujin RC is it's not the best starter, but it's definitely one worth mentioning because we get a lot of oftentimes jams will find themselves charging Ryujin in an attempt to like poke somebody out of, you know, Soul doing something like a 6H into Gunflame, which by itself, you know, at most spacings with a TK Ryujin, that's if you're not familiar with the term, it's like a move where you input the special and then input up. It makes it come out a little bit faster than regular Ryujin, which she has a little bit of like wind up. Suffice to say, that's a common poke out tool, and after you get that, you can very often get a follow-up combo. So it's worth mentioning as a starter, and especially if you're getting in the lab and playing around with PK combos, that's a good one to lab. Just because that's another thing that tends to happen in matches pretty constantly, so if you have a good idea of what you can do off of it, that'll help a lot for your combo game and for improvising combos. That's a very like general guide to the theory. I'm going to work through some examples of just like use cases for combo theory and how one might start to look at how different normals affect the combos and how to tell whether something's too high or too low, or you know, the three bears porridge, too cold, too hot, just right. You'll get a better sense of that, and you'll be able to start ad-libbing combos and not have to memorize and look at resources and spreadsheets as much. And you'll be able to react more quickly and pick things up without having to really think about it. But just to go over, 5K, 2S, they're good for a lot of the super lightweight characters and lightweights, and they'll work on a lot of the medium weights. Those are the ones you want to use, as well as close slash works on the like light characters, but not as much on the super light characters like Ram and May. On midweights, 5K works a lot of the time, 2S works a lot of the time, close slash works. Then you have the two string fillers, 5K 2S, 5K close slash. 5K 2S pops them up a little less high, 5K close slash pops them up decently high, so it'll whiff on lights. And then for heavyweights you have, we'll see some of that, but that's just a general overview again. So we're gonna run into some use cases. I was kind of talking about it earlier, but there's some characters that are kind of weird to PK just because the way that, like, oftentimes they're also just weird to combo in Guilty Gear in general, even for other characters. So there are a bunch of those that are kind of a pain. Zato is a common one that people talk about. Faust has like a weird hurt box where, especially his like falling hurt box when he's being comboed, like it gets hit by moves weirdly. So like some things that you would expect to work don't, and some things that you wouldn't expect to work totally do. Venom is notoriously kind of a pain to combo just because his hurt box kind of, it's like, I think a little bit disjointed and it's shaped weird. Bedman's goofy, but not too bad. Sin is super easy to combo with PK. Leo has a like, I think it's like he gets hit more, or his like the hurt box is easier to hit at his like lower back than it is at his legs, so you kind of have to hit setups deep on him. Jam is bad at comboing herself. Her combos on herself are goofy, and you'll see one of those later. Haikyun is the weirdest big buddy to combo, but it's very doable, especially the puffball counter hits. And that's it for the most part. So we'll look at Zato. And we're gonna try some of these combos, and I'm gonna try to, I want to make this a nice use case for the theory and like why things work the way they do, and I want to kind of illustrate the thought process a bit as well to kind of facilitate your understanding of the theory. So let's say, do we have counter hit on? The combo we're going to look at, or the starter I should say we're going to look at, is a counter hit S puffball, which we were talking about earlier, is like a common starter. So we're going to look at some of the ways that if you didn't have the spreadsheet sitting right next to you and you had to figure it out, if you're playing your casuals before a tournament set or something, and you're just like, oh my god, I've never fought Zato, and Zato's in my pool and I need to figure it out, and you can't look at the resource to get an idea, here's kind of the thought process. So get counter hit S puff, we want him to get PK'd somehow rather than doing the whatever combo into 4-6 PP. So let's try some of the ones that we know, just assuming you don't know anything about the normals and how high they launch them, just see what they do. So we'll do 5K 2H. No, he fell out of it. The reason why, yeah, it's hitting him right in the butt. He's not going high enough to not get hit by the first active frame of 4-6P, so it's just hitting him, and then he just gets, like, he doesn't fall into it. The 4-6P, the kick doesn't come out fast enough, and he just techs out and kills you. Or you have to spend meter and not die. Let's try some other options. 5k is just one of them. 2s, same thing, too low. What about close slash? Nope, too low still. Well, all of our first three are you know, they're not getting them high up enough, even with both hits of 2h. So we need them to get higher. How are we gonna do that? The next things we have: 5k close slash, 5k 2 slash, 2h. So we'll let the 2h rock just to see what it does. We'll do both hits and we'll just do a 4-6p right after that, see what happens. Oh wait. Oh wait. Oh man, it's like whiffing right under him. He's way too high. So 5k close slash 2h2 does not work. What about... Oh, no. 5k 2 slash 2h2 also does not work. So we've ran through 4 of our or rather 5 of our main fillers. What do we do now? Well, think back. Can choose to either let 2h hit only once. We can choose to do, or let it hit twice if we don't want him as high, which in this case we're probably going to end up only using 1 hit of 2h so he doesn't go as high. And then we'll see after that, let's see what happens, and we'll assume we're doing the 4-6p, just inputting it instantly. Still a little bit too high. So yeah, he's fallen out of it because when we do the 4-6p instantly, he's still just too high up where he's not getting hit by the 4-6p at all. Well, it's still fairly early on in the combo, right? It's getting closer to what we want. So what now? We'll delay it. That's the last piece of the puzzle. 2h1 is going to send him higher so that he can get hit by the 4-6p, but not... Like, it'll send him high enough that he'll get hit by it, but not high enough that he won't get hit by the 4-6p on the way down. Like that. And I want to do it again just so you notice the delay. This is instant. Too high. Or, yeah, he's still too high. But if we delay it... I wish this had the uni frame counter so you could see it with numbers, but like you can visually see the amount of delay that's going into getting the 4-6p. It's like mad delay to the point that like they'll still sometimes fall out because I'm not delaying it enough. But that's the theory. That's the like, this is how this works. And in that case, when you do it that way, both 5k close slash and 5k 2 slash both work. You just have to, so that's our final answer. 5k 2 slash puts him up because the other ones were too low. After that, we decide 2h1 or 2h2. 2h2 is way too high. There is no way, even with super delay, that 2h2 is going to work. So we use, knowing that after the 5k close slash or 5k 2 slash 2h2, even with an instant 4-6pk is too high, well, we move on to 1 hit. 1 hit, instant 4-6p, still too high, so we delay. And that's how we determine the combo theory. Or that's how we determine that's how we figure out how to make the combo work. We're kind of changing it, and that's how the different aspects of the combo affect the height. And it's a lot easier to see it this way. Okay, so let's go through another example of a character on the other end of the spectrum. We'll say Dizzy. Dizzy's a pretty thick lady, but she's, for being that, she's light. I consider super light, like I was saying before. what's our use case? Oh, H-puff wallsplat. H-puff wallsplat. Too high. So after the H-puff wallsplat happens, we're looking through the list of normals that we do, and we're going to use one of the lower launching fillers. So the 5k and the 2s that I was mentioning, 5k being the one that's like keeps them the lowest because she's a light character and we don't want her getting put up too high because the lights go up a bit more when they get comboed. So 5k 2h2, we just tried it. 5k 2h2 with an oh, that's not the right starter. 5k 2h2 with an instant 46p. Let's see what it does again. Too high. Too high, too high, too high. I think this might work though if we delay the 46p. Yeah. It's too high. If I tried delaying the 46p though, because it's still fairly early on in the combo, we get it. I think that was 6k. Yeah, just like that. Well, what if I don't want to use 6k? What if, that's a perfect example of what we were talking about earlier. What if I'm not confident in my ability to run up and not get 6k when I try to do a dashing 5k? Well, there's other things that work. There's not only one route that works. So what's another route that might work? Well, the other normal that we have as a filler before 2h on lights is 2s. So let's see what 2s does. Too high. So the same thing we did before. Oops. Oh. 2h2. It's a little bit too high still. I don't think it'll even work with a good delay on it. Yeah, no, it's still a little too high. So what are we gonna do? Let's try 2h1. Oops. Oops. Or a super delay. Nah, super delay probably won't work. There it goes. So instead of doing 2 hits at 2h, we'll just do 1, and suddenly the 2s works. And that's a good example too of that kind of shows you that, you know, if 5k, kind of the relationship between the normals, 2s sends them up slightly higher, so we need 1 less hit of 2h. Whereas 5k doesn't send them up as high, so we need 2 hits of 2h. And that is kind of a good example of it. 5k and 2s, 2h1, I should say it this way. 5k, 2h, 1 hit, and 2s, 2h, 1 hit tend to be more stable on lights and super lights because they don't need to get pushed as high up. But if you see a midweight or a heavyweight, and this is kind of to show why combo theory is helpful again, in that situation, if I'm getting that same combo, and I do like a 5k 2h or a 2s 2h on a heavyweight, or not a heavyweight, but a midweight, and I see that they're too low to the point where like I know where the hitbox of 46p is, I know it's going to hit them right square in the foot, and they're not high up enough. In that situation, I would just let the 2h rock. And I let the 2h rock, and it sends them up a bit higher, and then hopefully I can get a 4.6 PK instead of a 4.6p. So let's go to a example on the other end of the spectrum. Where's Potemkin? Potemkin. I'm going to demonstrate the throw combo real quick just because we were talking about it earlier, but so actual just throw into 4.6 PK works. On pot, I think you can also do 2H. Yeah. One thing to keep in mind that I'm going to mention as a side note just because it's helpful, this is more so for the heavyweights, for the big bodies, pot, Coom, and Bedman. if you see them get hit really low in the air by the when you're doing the puffball follow-up to PK, and they're like real low in the air. So if I were to do like a, that's a bad example. I'm gonna try to delay it a little bit more. Like that, if the S puffball hits them when they're too high, like Potemkin was, the middle of his body was like right where the top of Jam's head is in the air, and when I did the S puff, it didn't push him up high enough, so the following H puff hit as he hit the ground, and it was an OTG hit. He techs and kills me. So that's an important thing to remember, especially for PKs. When you see a big body falling, if they're not high enough in the air and you try to do both puffballs, you're gonna have a bad time. So let's do on Potemkin. Do I have counter hit on? No? No, it's on. We're gonna do a use case besides throw RC. We're gonna look at S puff, counter hit, and what to do with that. I think that's gonna be 5k close slash 2h2. Yeah. Oh no. That should work. He's just a little bit too. There it goes. So in that case, it does work, and the reason why it worked the last time that I tried it, where I delayed the 4-6p a little bit, was because the way that the 2H hits work, it pushes their hurt box up a little bit, and then their character kind of like, the character model kind of like leans back a little bit, if I remember correctly, and their feet come up a little bit, so they're actually like even higher after the hit, and you can kind of see it as they're like, that his head is like tilting forward a little bit. Like you see that little flicker of animation, they get sent up just a little bit higher, so sometimes if you wait for the animation of the 2H affecting them to like finish, they'll be even higher. That's a weird combo. And just like that, if you delay it a little bit, it'll work. What about H puff wallsplat? Let's do 5k 2s. One hit of 2H, not that good. 2 shouldn't whiff. And he was long enough to do the puff puff after. Throw we kind of already did, but one thing I didn't show, because I did the puff puff after. With the big bodies, they're also low enough that you can, instead of doing an air combo or doing double puffball for whatever reason you wanted to, like if you wanted to set up a safe jump or something, I don't know. There's different reasons why people choose the things they do, and that's a whole different story, but you could also do 2H 4-6 PP knockdown. And that's a good example, I guess, of theory on a heavier body. Oh, this is such a jank combo. I messed up the follow-up, but that's PKs when they work and when they don't. What about another big body? Let's do bedman. I'll show it real quick, but the throw, like I was saying, the throw RC or the throw raw 4-6 PK combo works on these three. On Potemkin, bedman. Oh, he might be a little bit too high. He's like slightly lighter than Potemkin, so I think 2H might also not work, but raw 4-6P does. Oops. And you can do that into puffball. I wonder if you can get 2H. And he's a little bit too high. Don't know if it'll work, but I'm not gonna test it super. Oh wait, there it is. So that's doable, and obviously, if you don't like either of those options, if you're in a match and you really need to do something, air combos. So, throw 4-6 PK. Alright, S puffball. Slightly lighter, so use one hit of 2H instead of two, like we did on Potemkin. Because the second hit is going to send him too high. But you can see like the corner of the bed frame about to get hit, so you know it's like close-ish, so all you have to do is take one hit of 2H out. Will that work? I wonder if... Yeah, that works. So that's another way of seeing the difference in normals. If you choose to use close slash instead of... what was I doing before? If you choose to use close slash, you need both hits because it doesn't send them up as high. If you choose to use close slash instead of 5k2s there, you need the second hit of 2h because close slash by itself does not send them up high enough. Wallsplat should be like similar-ish. Close slash 2 hits. And if the difference is because like compared to S Puff where they're tumbling, they're wall stuck, but like you see he's up there, he has to fall off of the wall a little bit, so they're already a little bit higher up. So instead, in this case, close slash 4-6p almost instantly works pretty well, and it's stable across both combos. So you might choose to use close slash here instead, just so you don't have to worry too much about variation. With H though, he's pretty high up there, so if I do an instant, you know, 5k2s 2h1, if I do the 4-6p instantly, he's too high, so I gotta delay it. There 4-6pk we already went over. So that's a good showcase though of how combo theory will affect your combos and what that means for doing these combos and how to adjust through them and how to become less reliant on like memorizing a combo and knowing that it works versus seeing the animations of the other character as you're comboing them. And you might not make the decision to do something like what we just saw across the span of like watching the combo happen for the first time ever and seeing like, oh, he's exactly this many pixels. In all likelihood, you're probably going to do the counter hit once in a match and they'll tech out of the combo and kill you, and you're going to be like, well, I need to do something. And then from there, when you see like, okay, this time he was too high, I did this thing next, he was too low. The fourth, fifth time you get that hit, you'll do the variation that works, and you'll get the combo. And then it turns into a whole different game. You'll get your knockdown, you get your Oki. And that's why it's important. Jam cannot combo herself. She can, but it's ugh. Some of these variations are just yucky. Off of throw RC. Let's start with throw RC. Let's see what it do. Oops, we have to do the throw RC first. Oh my gosh. So 5k 2h 2 hits. Too high. She is way up there. There's no way we're gonna get her down into the 4-6p. What about if we do one hit and then instantly, yep, 5k 2H, 1 hit, instant 4-6 PK, still too high. Well, what can we do at this point? You can decide to either keep trying it with 5K, see how far you can delay it, how long you can wait for them to fall into it, or we'll go to a different normal. You can try it with, try to do some variation with 2S. Let's start with option 1. I really want to do 5K 2H off of throw RC against Jam for whatever reason. I just love that combo. I really want to see it work. Oops. Look at that! So 2H with like a whole bunch of delay, or 5K 2H with a whole bunch of delay after the 1 hit. We get it to work. And their combo's a little wacky too, but hey, 5K 2H, 1 hit, super delay 4-6 PK works. Let's say I'm not particularly attached to 5K. I just want something to work. Let's see what does. I decide, okay, let's try 2H. Oh my gosh. So 2S with 2 hits of 2H is too high. I think I did the 4-6P pretty instantly too. Yeah, too high. What about with 1 hit? Oh my gosh, I'm missing that RC point like crazy. Oh, that one was too low though. If you see, it hits her during like that first few frames of 4-6P where it's starting to appear. So you watch the animation come out, and as it's coming out, it's already hitting her. Like, I mean, it's not gonna end soon enough to get the K to work. So what do? Well, let's see. 2H1 delay in that case. Oops. Oh, I think I know what this is a weird delay. This is what we were talking about earlier, where the first hit of 2H, you have to do the 4-6P right as the first hit of 2H is sending her up again. Like after it hits, when it like tilts her up again. This is super tight, but it definitely will work. What a pain in the ass combo. But it works. Like we saw, 2H1 instant, too low. 2H2, too high. Well, where's the middle? It's waiting for the first hit to send them up as high as it's going to send them, and then doing the 4-6P instantly. On the other hand, there's something else too that might work, which is instead of doing the 4-6P instantly, let's see, can we do a setup where we delay it so much that even though we... it's probably easier to show it than say it. So this example again. 2S, 2H, both hits, 4-6P instantly, she's too high. But what if we delayed it? Like, she's not too high. She's up there, but the hitbox of 4-6P comparatively is like not much lower. So with a lot of delay, 2S 2H2 also works. S-Puff. What about S-Puff? That's another common counter hit. What are some examples we want to use? 5K 2H2. Let's try it. That's one of the light fillers. Let's see what that does. Instant works. By that logic, 2H1 instant should not work because she's too low, which it doesn't. Oh wait, it does. I think I delayed it a little bit too much. Yeah, Oh, it does. Maybe I'm not delaying the 2H2. Weird hurt boxes. Weird hurt boxes. Either one will work, I guess. Oh wait, I remember why I wrote this combo down. That's why. So, either one of those combos will work. But the puffball won't, if I remember correctly. Oh, that one does. So 2H, what was it? 2H1 works. But 2H2 does not. H2, no puff puff. 2H1. And it works. Well, that's a good example of why combo theory for this stuff is important. So 2S, 2H1 is the example I had written down of Puff Puff working after a PK off of like S Puff counter hit. Yeah, that one works too. One thing that's important is you gotta let them slide. So when you're practicing and labbing these combos, you gotta let them slide on, like, cause they'll hit the ground, but if you're close enough, you can actually like pick them up out of the air, which is an entirely different combo because like she's way up here as opposed to when she's on the ground. So if you're labbing combos, that's a worthwhile thing to see, is like, does this work when she hits the ground versus when I pick her up out of the air? Like, that's an important thing to keep in mind if you're wondering why an S-Puff counter hit combo works or doesn't work. I probably picked her out of the air at least once. But off of the ground slide, 2S, 2H1 will give you double puffball after. 5K, 2H2 does not. Oops, let's make sure we let her hit. Too high. Oops. But 5K 2H1 works, I think. Yeah, 2H2 does not. That's an example of how that works, though. And that's an example of like a weird hit you're gonna get that I don't know if there is a combo listed for like the getting second hit counter hit wall bounce JD into a PK. I don't think you can get a double puffball after that, but like, there you go. Ooh, that's so goofy. Oh, it would have worked. Weird PK combos that are a lot easier to confirm once you understand how theory works and what that means for your combos. You'll get all kinds of fun combos and all kinds of better pickups if you understand what the normals do and when to use each one, and how to tell where your combo is going to hit, where the 4-6P is going to hit, whether you can do puff puff because they're low enough after or not. There's a million benefits to learning the theory of the combo. Oh, I wonder if that would work. I haven't tested that out. Maybe not. Oh, that's a fun one. Wait, I think I tried this the other day. JD regular hit and JD counter hit and JD second hit counter hit, all also fun things to lab. Because you get like a weird hit like that. Oh, thanks for pointing that out, Window. Yeah, if you get a counter hit in the corner like this, if you don't backdash out, you're side swapped. So it'll get super weird, and you have to do either a backwalk or a backdash to get out, just so you don't end up like I mean, that's cool too, though. And then you have stuff like that where you have to like your side swap happens as you're in the corner, and because I was in the corner, like that combo pushes him out, but then the puff puff that happens after, it's double puffball is notorious for side swapping people when you don't want it to. So like this might actually be a better option for you. Or it'll go the other way because nobody can ever tell what double puffball is going to do. What else can it do? Oh, that's I don't think Sway was the first one to do that or anything, but he did it in his video and it blew my mind because I think that was one of the first times I had ever seen it. So that'll work because I'll hit with the active frames of 4-6P as they're falling into it, which you really have to know the hitbox of it and the timing of it to be able to do. Oh, that almost come. What you can do is whiff the 4-6P and then get the K, which is also sick. That's why I like that one's cooler. But stuff like that's a situational thing that once you're aware of the basic combos and how to do stuff, you can do stuff like that. That's a lot of damage too. I'm gonna miss this. Oh, I didn't. That's PK combo theory in a nutshell. Congratulations on completing the masterclass. I don't think there was anything else I was going to mention. I think that was about it. But, yeah. Character does sick things. There's no way that'll work. Your certificate will be in the mail. Just watch out because it comes in a brown paper envelope and it's got cooking oil all over it, as Jam wouldn't have it any other way. Oh, another fun thing. Not necess- I didn't mention this. This is a sign thing. Or no, it's not a sign thing. This is a Rev 1 thing. After you get a PK, there's lots of other stuff you can do besides Puff Puff. And most of it's like kind of whatever, air combos or whatever. Puff Puff is like what everybody does because the reward is so good. But here's another fun one. How am I gonna set this up? Let's do. Oh, fucked it up. Oh, you can get a pickup after that, but if you have a charged region and you're fighting a character like Kai or Soul or anybody who's like a midweight to slightly heavier, you can actually also do this on lightweights, but you need to TK it higher. After you do the 4-6 PK, if you do a TK region, and it's like, you know, they're not super high up in the air, so like if you did like you wouldn't be able to do this after a counter hit 4-6 PK, I don't think. If that was your starter, I don't think this would hit. Yeah, no, it goes right through him. So that's like thing you got to be careful of. I'd mess around with this before you do it in a real match, but this was one of my favorite things to do. It's still one of my favorite combos. Oh yeah, but there's too much. There's not enough hit stun after that, so he drops out of the second puffball. So you did just one there. And there's not enough hit stun there too. Need something like that though. Oops, that's supposed to be TK. But yeah. The reason why we did this is a funny story because back in Rev 1 before Jam could do 4-6 PK into double puffball, if you ever did a 4-6 PK combo, you had to have a card to knock down with it because you couldn't do anything in Rev 1 that would knock down besides air combo into card. But if you didn't have a card, like, what are you gonna do? Or if they get launched up real high and you have the card, if it's a Ryujin, sometimes you'll get that thing where they're like real high up in the air and you're scared the Ryujin's gonna whiff. Hey, thanks for tuning in, man. Enjoy your white cheddar popcorn. But the air combo would sometimes, like, you'll be too low and then the Ryujin will whiff under them and you're whiffing Ryujin and they just tech and destroy you. So that started as a way to mitigate that thing from happening, but also as a sick combo. It was actually in one of my combo videos. One of my favorite combos ever. Hopefully this is helpful. If you're... This is probably going to be the most helpful for you. I probably should have clarified this when I started all this, but this guide is going to be helpful for you if you already have a good idea of how PKs work, but you don't know why they work. Like, you don't know what makes you drop the combo while you're doing it. If you know, as you're doing your execution, you know that, 2S2H2 is supposed to work on Kai, but it's not working. Like, he's falling out of it and killing me. Or I hit him with the 4-6P, but the K didn't come out. It's probably because you hit him with the active, or with the very first active of it, instead of letting it become active and letting him fall into it. Kind of how we were talking about before. Knowing why the combo doesn't work or why it dropped kind of helps you understand, not only, like, just knowing the theory behind it is good, but what it gives you is the ability to adjust that combo the next time so that you know it will hit. And then you know, at this point, like, I did PK combos all the time in Rev 1, even though I'll admit now, after a time, like, PK combos in Rev 1 were good damage and whatever, but, like, there was no great reason to use them besides, or there was no amazing reason to use them over just the regular air combos or whatever else people were doing that looked like AC jam combos. But after Rev 2 dropped, and after the point where she got puff, like, there's no reason not to do them. They are so good. The gameplay loop of doing a PK combo on an opponent and then getting the double puffball after and getting either a max card or getting Godoki, it's just so integral to her game that not doing them, you lose out on a lot. But if you're at that point where you're incorporating them but you don't know how to adjust, or if for whatever reason you want to know, that's combo theory rather than memorizing set combos. And this way you won't have to keep a list of, like, combos that work on each character in each situation, and what do I do on Kai versus what do I do on Dizzy versus what I like. I don't think I ever wanted to memorize all the combos, because I would rather just be able to, like, the more you do them too, like, you'll get a feel. So you'll see kind of where the opponent is. There's times where I've, like, started with a 5k and thought, he's pretty low, like, maybe I should do close /2 and see where that leads him. Oh, but he's too high now, I'll do one hit of 2H. you'll make those adjustments. After a while, you'll start to make them subconsciously to some degree sometimes. One thing actually I didn't talk about that I should have, that I forgot to talk about, is as a starter, IED Gekiden is also good. On lights, as with all other things, it's kind of hard to get a double puffball after, but it's still like, because this is a tool you use often in neutral, it's good to have these in the you know, in the brain bank, so that when you do get that hit, it works. That was a counter hit. I want to make sure. I know that it does work, but like the properties of how they move through the air are different when they get counter hit versus when they get regular hit. So off of just a regular hit, say we're just in neutral, we catch somebody unaware. Does that work? No. Or no, we don't want a Gekiden card. Oh, I messed up the air combo. Yeah, it's not gonna whiff, but something like that. This is a good starter to practice too, and the rules about how the normals interact with everybody's falling hurt boxes are gonna stay true. It just really depends on, like, somebody like Elfel. They did something like, what, 5k 2h1, because when the Gekiden hits them, it hits them in the air. They're gonna end up pretty high in the air. So you don't need to put them up that much further to get the 4-6p to whiff for the first few frames and then hit them while it's like in the middle of it. Oh, I switched the wrong character. You're not looking to do that. You're more just looking to use 5k to confirm off of the hit, so that, you know, you keep putting them in hit stun. You're effectively continuing the combo, but you need 2H because it has, like we were talking about before, it's like the glue in PK combos, where you need the hit stun from it and the way that it sends them up to put them into the 4-6p. I know I need those two elements. They're already pretty high up. All I'm going to do is 5k 2h1 on Elfel, but on Kai, I think this will work. Yeah, something like that. And you get a puff puff after. What else could we do? Close slash maybe? Maybe. With 2 hits, yes. With a lot of delay, 5k 2s. I don't know if 5k close slash. Yeah, no, that'll work. That'll definitely work. But I need to delay it the same way that I delay 5k 2s, because they're both part of that class of filler where it sets them up pretty high. I don't know. Yeah, no, we'll get it if you're close enough. But if you're not too close, the puffball whiff. Okay. ID Geki.